Red Bull just shocked the FIA. Right after the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi, they handed over explosive new evidence that could change everything for Lando Norris. The FIA is now preparing a major penalty. And if they go through with it, Norris could lose the title and Verstappen might be handed the crown. McLaren is on red alert. The radio leaks, the strategy, the irregular tire calls, it's all under investigation, and the pressure is boiling. If you want to know how this ends, subscribe right now because this isn't just the end of the season. This might be the biggest title twist in years. The spotlight is now fully fixed on McLaren's technical department. What began as a celebration in orange has rapidly devolved into a crisis of credibility. Red Bull's evidence doesn't just raise questions about race day calls, it digs into how McLaren may have engineered the entire Abu Dhabi weekend, allegedly walking a thin line between innovation and regulation. The FIA's technical observers are now dissecting telemetry packages, especially from Norris's final stint, looking for anomalies in traction output and electronic assistance under deceleration. One critical area of interest is the role of driver assist systems. Under current regulations, all driver inputs, throttle, braking, gear shifts must be manually executed, with minimal software interference. But Red Bull has reportedly flagged a sector of Norris's data where gear changes and throttle applications during turns 11 through 14 were executed with unusually consistent timing and minimal wheel spin. Their suspicion is that a semi-automated shifting aid may have been active, a feature strictly banned unless declared pre-race and locked within software scrutiny. This isn't just theoretical paranoia. Red Bull's engineers noticed this trend after comparing Verstappen's car-to-car overlays from the final laps. Norris's car seemed to gain time in microbursts exiting slow corners, despite visibly struggling earlier in the race on worn compounds. In a race defined by tire degradation and heat management, this kind of performance leap in the final 15 laps was enough to raise alarm bells, and now it's drawing direct attention from FIA inspectors. Fuel flow consistency is another critical detail under review. With fuel rate sensors now standardized across all teams, FIA scrutineers are zeroing in on data streams from McLaren's control unit. Specifically, they're checking whether Norris's car experienced microsurges in fuel release during DRS activation zone, something that would provide temporary power advantages. If confirmed, this would constitute a clear violation of power unit regulations, and the consequences would be enormous. McLaren, for their part, remain silent publicly but have reportedly submitted internal logs and ECU settings voluntarily to the FIA to avoid a more severe intervention. Privately, sources close to the Woking team insist this is a politically motivated ploy by Red Bull, an attempt to destabilize a rising rival. However, the sheer amount of performance-based data being poured over suggests the investigation is more than just political theater. The FIA does not launch reviews of this magnitude without technical weight behind them. All eyes now shift to the FIA's post-race compliance window, which remains open for another 48 hours. That timeframe gives the governing body a narrow window to file official sanctions, ranging from time penalties to full disqualification. Given that Verstappen finished just 2 points behind in the championship standings, even a minor infringement, a 5-second penalty applied retroactively, could hand Max the title and rewrite the ending to one of the most intense F1 seasons in recent memory. Behind closed doors, engineers from Ferrari and Mercedes are reportedly watching this unfold with keen interest. The broader concern is not just about whether Norris retains his title, but whether McLaren's alleged data handling techniques might expose a systemic loophole in the FIA's regulatory armor. If other teams begin copying similar strategies, it could erode the foundations of technical fairness in F1. That's why this is no longer just a Red Bull versus McLaren fight, it's a war over the future of race engineering limits. The FIA's official statement didn't leave much to interpretation. Late Sunday night, they confirmed that a full Article 2.1 technical review had been triggered specifically targeting Lando Norris's McLaren. The review isn't limited to telemetry data, it encompasses mechanical inspections, radio communications, and even software version logs from McLaren's encrypted ECU. According to internal sources close to the investigation, the governing body is treating this as a potential breach of sporting integrity, not just a mechanical irregularity. What's most alarming for McLaren is the type of data being requested. The FIA has now demanded access to uncompressed radio archives between Norris and his race engineer from lap 25 to the final lap, a phase where Red Bull claims Norris's pace surge defied known tire behavior. The focus is on whether any coded instructions were given that might have helped bypass software restrictions. If proven, this could fall under illegal driver coaching or manipulation of performance aids, both of which carry heavy post-race penalties. There is also growing chatter around Norris's tire data. The FIA is currently reviewing temperature readings from his left rear tire, a component that appeared to operate well below expected degradation rates compared to similar compounds on Verstappen's and Leclerc's cars. Red Bull's argument? That McLaren may have implemented an unauthorized thermal insulation strategy during pit stops, keeping the tires in a narrower operating window for longer. If true, it would violate Article 12.3 regarding non-standard heat retention methods. For fans, this investigation isn't just about a technical breach, it's about justice. The title battle between Norris and Verstappen was arguably one of the most thrilling in years. But if the outcome hinged on performance gained through questionable means, the integrity of the sport comes under fire. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem has made clear in recent months that the era of gray areas is over. And if this case proves to be the testbed for that new doctrine, the punishment could be precedent-setting. At the center of the storm is Norris himself. The young Brit, who had just claimed what many believed was a career-defining championship, now finds his name linked to a possible disqualification. It's a crushing narrative shift from hero to headline. While Norris has not spoken publicly since the news broke, McLaren's silence has fueled further speculation. The delay in issuing any formal defense suggests either internal panic or legal consultation is underway. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen remains composed but alert. Red Bull insiders suggest he's been briefed on the potential points shift should Norris receive a time penalty or be stripped of the win. If that happens, Verstappen, who finished the race just 3.4 seconds behind Norris, would leapfrog to the top of the championship standings. And given how aggressively Red Bull has pursued the complaint, it's clear they believe this isn't just about correcting the record, it's about reclaiming the crown. The clock is ticking. The FIA is expected to release a preliminary findings report within the next 24 hours. If the evidence holds, they'll proceed to a tribunal hearing where teams will be allowed to present their arguments. But in a year that was already marred by controversy and off-track power plays, this moment could define how Formula One polices its future and whether innovation will be celebrated or sanctioned. As Monday dawned in the Yas Marina paddock, tension at McLaren had reached its peak. Engineers were seen arriving hours earlier than usual, meeting behind closed doors in what insiders are calling an internal compliance crisis. According to sources, McLaren's legal and technical teams are preparing two simultaneous strategies: 1, a defense to present to the FIA tribunal, and 2, contingency plans for a post-sanction scenario that may involve a public statement, sponsorship damage control, and even an internal audit. The stakes? Nothing less than the legitimacy of Lando Norris's title run. McLaren's biggest challenge isn't just the evidence itself, it's the optics. Red Bull's leaked brief to the FIA includes a detailed timeline suggesting McLaren's second pit stop may have violated protocol regarding cooling blanket temperature exposure and timing. If this timeline holds, it may suggest McLaren gained tire performance through a loophole in tire preconditioning regulations, an area the FIA has recently warned teams about. This isn't a gray area anymore. The FIA had made it very clear in a technical directive issued in Austin earlier this year that any intent to manipulate thermal balance during pit cycles will be treated as breachworthy. In a surprising twist, McLaren has yet to provide raw telemetry to disprove Red Bull's claims. Instead, they've attempted to shift the conversation toward ambiguity in how the FIA defines passive thermal retention. But this move has only deepened suspicion. If the evidence were truly weak, McLaren would have likely presented full data transparency immediately. The delay, now past 36 hours, is being interpreted by rival teams as an admission that something, somewhere, might not align with regulations. Zak Brown, normally vocal and media-friendly, has gone conspicuously silent. He cancelled his planned appearance on Sky Sports' post-race panel and was seen in a tense conversation with FIA delegates behind McLaren's hospitality suite. Meanwhile, Andrea Stella has limited his comments to vague phrases like, "We respect the process," and "We are working with full cooperation." For a team that just celebrated what should have been a crowning achievement, the silence is deafening and dangerous. What's becoming increasingly clear is that this is no longer just about Lando Norris. The FIA's investigation appears to be widening. There are now hints that data from Oscar Piastri's car is also under review, not necessarily for violations, but to compare baseline behaviors. If McLaren's setup strategies between the two drivers reveal a discrepancy that correlates with suspicious gains on Norris's side, that alone could be used to argue intentional manipulation or selective optimization, both regulatory red flags. In the midst of this, Red Bull is playing the long game. By keeping pressure on the FIA and continuously feeding them new evidence, they are not only pursuing a possible championship reversal, they are shaping the narrative. Red Bull wants this to be remembered not as a controversial grab for the title, but as a necessary defense of fair play. Their media strategy, orchestrated with precision, is hammering one theme: the rules exist for a reason. If McLaren broke them, they must be held accountable no matter how uncomfortable that truth may be. As we wait for the FIA's interim ruling, the paddock is holding its breath. The sport finds itself at a crossroads where technical innovation collides with regulatory limits. And for McLaren, what began as a weekend of glory has turned into a reputational nightmare. The verdict may not just decide the championship, it may shape how the next era of Formula One is governed.